safe in this part of the world because, as I mentioned yesterday, and as most of you know who watch this, although some of you I know are quite distant from here, it's been a pretty interesting 2 days, to say the least. At least one of our members is experiencing an issue due to flooding, and they've asked for prayer because the flood waters were approaching their door. And of course, we're just knowing that they will stop there and they won't go in their house, because during the previous storm not too long ago, well, I think 3 or 4 years ago, they did get flooded. So if you're in the mind for it, we would appreciate your prayers in this regard. Today's reading is kind of interesting. It says, what if the question is the answer? What if the question is the answer? Of course, then you might say, well, the answer to what? Well, let's see what Reverend Ryan has got to say here. First quote is from Dorothy West. I looked her up. She was an American short story writer and a magazine editor, and she was part of the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s, I think in 1930s. She lived for pretty much the whole of the 20th century. She was born in the early 1900s and died in the 1990s. So she lived for pretty well the whole of the 20th century. The quote is from The Richer, the Poorer. Here's what she says. To know how much there is to know is the beginning of learning to live. To know how much there is to know is the beginning of learning to live. And this is what Ernest Holmes says. He says, evolution is an eternal unfoldment. Life reveals itself to whoever is receptive to it. In other words, when you're open, things come in. It's from a publication which I do have called Can We Talk to God? According to Reverend Ryan, it's on page 17, paragraph 3. She must have a different version of it. This is my version, and in mine, it's actually on page 19, and it's paragraph 2. And I'm going to read the quote, actually, because it does put a slightly different light on it. It explains it a little bit more, as you'll see later on. Evolution is an eternal unfoldment. Life reveals itself to whoever is receptive to it. A motion picture would have been a miracle in medieval times, and no doubt the figures on the screen would have been regarded as either gods or devils. Maybe. The birth of spiritual ideas into the human consciousness meets with 3 distinct reactions. The Orthodox says that the divine never intended such things to be, else he would have revealed them through his prophets. Notice he and his. The materialist laughs at them. The childlike are receptive, and that is really the key. That last statement there, the childlike are receptive, that's really the key. I'm going to quote on that a little bit later. So if you got this book, Can We Talk to God? It's either on page 17, paragraph 3, or page 19, paragraph 2, depending which version you have. And I'll tell you, mine is from, let me have a look, see what it is. Oh, I bought it at Creative Life Spiritual Center. I can still get the tickets in there. I have the one that was published in 1999. Oh, yeah, 1999. That's when mine was published. So, wow, a long time ago, 25 years ago. Reverend Ryan says, I'm a big fan of curiosity, which is ironic because I love being a passenger on the, quote, knowing what is going to happen next train. She says, I recently found myself smack in the middle of not knowing what was coming next, which tested my allegiance to my belief that curiosity is our greatest superpower and basically the key to living an epic life. Reverend Ryan goes on to say, what I wondered if the answer were found in merely asking the question. Couldn't be that simple, could it? But you know what? I think it is. The energy behind any question, when asked from a space of curiosity and openness, cracks open the door to limitless possibilities. When we can bring a beginner's mindset to the proverbial table, as is often referenced in spiritual communities, we loosen the grip that our attachment to an outcome brings. We release our mind to take in a larger view. In this wide lens view, we can see the wholeness that is present, not only in every question, but in every answer. Sorry, not only in every answer, but in every question. When we learn to be okay with the questions, we can plop down on the couch of curiosity and begin our adventure of living in the mystery and find our joy of living in the question. Yeah, she's talking, she, he, they. Sorry, I beg your pardon. The pronoun is they. Reverend Ryan quotes that many spiritual masters and mistresses come up with this idea. In fact, the one I remember most was, in the expert's mind, there is only one solution. In the beginner's mind, there are many. And it's a pretty simple approach to life in general. If we approach anything with the idea that there's only one answer, then it limits our thinking completely. And if you look at a lot of the arguments going back and forth in the religious arena, in the political arena, people come to the table with just their answer and no other. However, if you go in with the mindset that everybody has a point of view and you let them express it, then you start opening yourself up to other possibilities. One experiment, well, it wasn't really an experiment. One thing that we used to do when I worked in the corporate world, I don't know if I've mentioned this before or not. I'm going to come back here so I know I'm actually speaking not from the book. We would have a group of people. It would be comprised of a project management team, finance, legal, and various other experts, quote unquote. And I used to work for the contract procurement group. In fact, I ran the contract procurement division in the Netherlands for Aramco for a while. What we would do is, because we were getting a deadlock over what to do about a particular situation on a particular project, we would actually have people switch roles. The attorneys would become the project management team. The project management team would become finance, and so on. We would get each party representing not themselves, but another party's point of view. And amazingly, they would get into the role such that they would really be arguing from the point of view of the role that they'd taken on. And the outcomes were a lot different because everybody was shocked that they could actually see a completely different point of view and agree with it. And it did help produce a lot of results because we opened ourselves up to different ways of looking at the situation, which is kind of cool. On a spiritual plane, how do we apply this on a spiritual plane? Well, when we do our spiritual mind treatments and we're looking for something in particular, say a house, we often use a house as an example because it's pretty easy and it's non-confrontational usually. If we go in there and say that we only want this one house and no other, we completely limit spirit in its ability to respond to us. Because you're saying in essence, especially if somebody lives there, that they need to get out of the house before you can move in. They may not want to get out of the house. And if they don't and they aren't, then it won't happen. However, if you just allow spirit the leeway to produce a house like this, in a situation like this, in a neighborhood like this, then you allow an enormous amount of choice to come in. And that's really the way we should approach our spiritual life, is not to confine ourselves to one solution, one answer, but to be open to different ones. And if we do that, it's amazing what comes to us because there are endless possibilities out there for many, many situations, or there are lots of possibilities for many situations, and we allow ourselves to be open to these. That's what I take away from this, from a spiritual perspective, that we don't stick to just wanting this. And what happens is also that when we're open to different answers coming in, we allow ourselves to grow spiritually as well as mentally, physically, etc. So that's really the main thing I've got to say today. The affirmation goes right along with that. I approach life with curiosity and a willingness to live in the mystery. I approach life with curiosity and a willingness to live in the mystery. And the answer then is to approach all things in life with a beginner's mindset. If you think you know the answers, you completely limit the solutions that are coming to you. If you're open, you'll allow many solutions to come in. So, what do you think? It's a good idea. Well, could be a good start to the weekend. We'll see what happens. And as I said, please, especially if you live in these parks, take care. I've been out driving around today. It was okay if you took your time and decided, where you were going. It was fine. But there are parts of the area that are still not safe. And therefore, please take your time. We're probably going to get some more rain in the next few days as well. I have no idea how much total rain we got. Before the last rainstorm of last night and this morning, we'd already got 7 inches, so 20 centimeters. So goodness knows what it is now. It's a lot. Well, remember, Reverend Lisa will be on tomorrow morning. She is reading from the Science of Mind textbook. If you've never been involved in reading that, it's a great place to start. She's going to take a year to read through it. And she's always got great comments. She's always got wonderful comments. I remember in ministerial school that we had a good time because most of us were open to asking questions and receiving answers. So please tune into Reverend Lisa tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. The good thing as well is this, that all this stuff's recorded. And if you miss it, you can go back. If you didn't start listening to Reverend Lisa when she began reading from the Science of Mind textbook 3 or 4 days ago, guess what? It's all in there. You can go back and listen to it again. And of course, it's what our teachings are based on. Being open to new ideas. That's the source of all of our teaching. So until next time, namaste.